when we look at the results from the last 2 years, where we looked at the detrimental effects of weed competition on cotton yields, you know, we look back and we say this is probably one of the most striking studies that we've done over the last couple of years. You know, we look at it, we see a nice visual response. We see how competitive the weeds are with cotton. But, you know, over the last 2 years, we've seen where we let the weeds compete for just 14 days. We saw a 21% reduction in yield. If we waited just one more week and delayed that weed removal up to 21 days, we saw a 37% reduction in yield. If we waited 4 weeks or 28 days to remove those weeds, we saw a 46% reduction in yield. So we almost cut our yields in half by delaying that weed control 28 days. So if you really put that in perspective, if you think about emergence to first or 4 true leaves, you're looking at 28 to 35 days. And so when we delay our weed control, where we've got significant weed pressure to that 4th true leaf application, we've seen under severe weed pressure that you could cut your yields almost in half, that those plants were not able to recover from that early season weed control. When you've got cotton that is stressed, whether it be for moisture, nutrients, light interception, due to that competition by the weeds, those first 30 to 40 days in that plant's life are some of the most critical to determine how that plant's going to develop. So basically what we saw is 3 key things from this early season weed control. The first thing is that the plants were stunted. And that's very, very detrimental for a couple of reasons. One, we know that the stunting is due to, you know, increased competition for all of those resources that the plants need. You know, and that's really gonna hinder that plant for the rest of the season, and that plant's gonna be delayed. And one of the things that we saw from that early season stunting is that those plants matured considerably later than the plants where we actually control the weeds on time. So we had cotton that was ready to pick where we controlled the weeds in a timely manner versus where the weeds were allowed to compete. That cotton was 7 to 14 days later in maturing, and pushed us later into the harvest season to harvest that crop. So not only did we reduce yield, we also delayed maturity. Now, when those plants were stunted, we were unable to achieve complete canopy closure or close the row middle. So what does that do? Not only does that allow for moisture to escape, that shade that we would normally get when we actually close the canopy is actually providing pretty good weed control. So what happens is when we've got a shorter statured crop that is delayed in maturity, it gives those weeds a greater opportunity to compete throughout the entire season, not just early season. And then the last thing that it really does is that it forces us to time our applications to larger weeds. And as we time our applications to larger weeds, that opens the door for weed resistance. So when we don't make those in a timely manner, or make those when the herbicide is actually, or a size at which that herbicide is actually labeled to control those weeds, we place a greater selection pressure on that herbicide to control those weeds, thereby, you know, reducing not only weed control but increasing the potential for weed resistance. And so, based on what we can see here, I think we can learn the lesson that we need to do 3 things. The first is always start with a clean seed bed. So if we start clean, we have a much better opportunity of staying clean throughout the year. So if we start clean, give that crop the potential to grow off well, then we can stay ahead of the weeds. We're always targeting smaller weeds. We let the crop canopy, which gives us a lot of help in controlling weeds. We conserve moisture. We give the plant a lot better opportunity to produce maximum yield. And then if we can add a residual material in there, whether it be with an over-the-top application of Roundup using a metolachlor product like Parlay, or actually using a product prior to planting like Cotoran or Valor in our burn down, and also as we go through in a lay-by application with Roundup, add a residual material in there like Diuron or Valor that's going to give us that residual weed control up until harvest, so that we don't have those late season escapes that interfere with our picking. Again, the takeaways from this are cotton is super sensitive to early season weed control. Research over the years has shown that. This just reinforces the fact that early season weed competition is detrimental to yield. but more importantly, to time your applications to weeds that are small, that are non-competitive, and so you have a better chance of killing them and reducing the potential for weed resistance.